Hi, and welcome to She's the Boss, the show that's all about female founders and women doing extraordinary things in business. My name is Jules Brooke, and I'm the founder of Handle Your Own PR. Now, today I am super excited because I have an amazing guest, Ariane Barker, who is the CEO of Scale Investors. She's a non-executive director. She's an angel and venture investor, and she's absolutely doing fantastic things for female founders. So I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you so much, Ariane.
Thanks, Jules. Great to be here.
Now, firstly, do you want to tell people a little bit about Scale Investors and what it actually does? And let's start there.
Yeah, no problem. So Scale Investors, which was founded by four amazing women prior to me becoming the CEO 7 years ago, is a female-focused angel investing network. We were founded on a similar organization called Golden Seeds out of the U.S.
Right.
And our four founding members are Carol Schwartz, Annette Kimmett, Susan Oliver, our chair, and my predecessor, Laura McKenzie. So back in 2013, we had seen those founding members had seen a similar model in the US, and they thought, why don't we have this in Australia? It's a fantastic way to activate more capital for female entrepreneurs. And so we were founded. I personally saw an article in the AFR when we were launched, and I thought that is brilliant. What a great idea, highly necessary and long overdue in the Australian markets about how to help women become better investors and also how to help women found their own businesses by activating capital through the angel investing community. And probably fast forward, we've got now 7 years on, we're seeing a resurgence of venture capital investing across the country. Again, very male dominated, but Scale's been able to really prove that our investment thematic, that female founders who get underfunded but yet outperform, are clearly worth having a really good look at. So we're very excited about what we're doing.
That's fantastic. Weirdly, I literally have just got off LinkedIn before this interview where somebody who is one of the Golden Seeds, I think, founders in the US has got a great article entitled Funding Female Founders is Not a Fucking Charity,
That's right.
Which I thought was really, really good. So I'd really love to talk a little bit about what she's talking about and what you've got all over your website, because that's where I first discovered that only 2% of VC capital is going to women in Australia, which is absolutely extraordinary to me. So I wondered if you could.
And I still go out to talk to people in the market about this statistic, and a lot of people say that's not true.
Well, I was actually speaking with someone in the UK last week, and she said it's only 1% over there.
Pretty bad. And, the shocking thing is that everybody can point to an outstanding female entrepreneur who's doing great things. But when you run the numbers, and this is all on our website at scaleinvestors.com.au, it's clear that, and this is sort of the unconscious bias dynamic, which is it's endemic. Most venture capital firms, specifically the Australian ones, and they're all lovely people, are run by men, and there are biases embedded in looking at investments through a male-led team. It's the same exact dynamic that plays out through financial services, corporates, ASX roles, you name it. Everyone's been talking about this problem, but it's particularly powerful when it comes to investing in early stage businesses led by women, because for them, they're being asked to build confidence, to pitch really hard, to sell themselves. And a lot of women aren't fundamentally comfortable selling themselves. They're happy to sell their idea. And we can again point to some great female founders, but this is what's playing into that less than 3% of venture capital funding gets activated for female founders.
It's just extraordinary to me that the numbers are so low, and I think I was one of those people who said I don't believe it. But one of the great things on your website that you put, and that was in this article, is actually the ROI that female founders are able to offer investors. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And we like to call it female arbitrage because there is an underinvestment compounded by an outperformance. And for myself, who comes from a financial services background, that's super compelling. Anywhere where there's an arbitrage opportunity in markets, because markets have missed something. And in this situation, we would strongly advocate that markets have completely missed women, and they've completely missed
Completely.
clearly, the statistics show it clearly. But the ones that get funded through those statistics again on our website, it's been looked at by Boston Consulting Group, Harvard Business School, a number of very well credentialized research firms and consulting firms have already analyzed this problem, because they've been asked by the corporate community, why aren't there more women in senior leadership roles? Why don't we get diversity? And yet, why do we know? We all know that diversity drives outperformance. So that outperformance metric has really played out where, when we've analyzed closely the number of female founded startups that have received funding, of the small proportion that do, they typically outperform on revenue and net return to investors, net return on investment to investors. So I think the stat is for every dollar invested, women-led or co-led startups outperform by over 35%. And
that's just extraordinary, isn't it? That's such a huge amount.
Yeah. And so that makes my job really easy, because where other people might have a thematic around deep tech or ag or life sciences or whatever it might be, our thematic is invest in women. and rather than it being a handout, it's saying, well, if you invest in a women founded business, you're going to get a higher return on your investment. And that's already been proven. So all we need to do is execute on it.
Yes, well, that's what we need. So, okay, I'm going to ask you a few more questions about how women are actually pitching themselves and also what Scale does. But let's first go into a little bit into your career, because I am always fascinated to hear about the journey that would have taken you up to being CEO of Scale Investors. So can you take me back to, I don't know, finishing uni and what your journey has been like since, and what you've learned along the way about investing, I guess?
Yeah, and I used to not really enjoy talking about myself, but over the years, what I've learned,
you absolutely have to. That's what we're telling all the women they have to do.
You're right. And I went to so many talks where everybody said, just jump in. So over the years, I've trained myself, and partly on behalf of other women who may have felt like I felt in my 20s and 30s. Increasingly, I was the only woman in the room. So from uni, I studied economics and mathematics. I was recruited to Merrill Lynch's analyst training program in New York, where I started as an analyst. I was trained, I think at the time, my cohort was probably about 30% women.
I'm surprised it's even that high, actually. Yeah, I would have thought, because that industry is not renowned for being particularly kind to women.
Well, and this is the thing, which was at the outset, and this is late 90s when I was hired, recruited for that program. I met some amazing women, and then promoted, transferred to London as an associate, worked in debt capital markets. Already, there was clearly fewer women at that level. And then when I started looking ahead and thinking, what's the path to success, one or two managing director females across, the whole leadership team.
So there's tens of thousands in those companies, aren't there?
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's a great company. So it was just, that was my reality. So worked in New York for a few years, then promoted, transferred to London. My family is, my mother's family is French. So for me, that was great. And I have a European passport, so that made it really easy.
Same. How long were you there for?
I was in London. Sadly, I was there for only 2 years because I met my Australian husband.
Well, I'm glad you did, because we're very glad you're here.
And he told me we got to Melbourne on our first date. And I thought, well, that's good for you.
Do you know, I married an English guy and I said exactly the same thing to him. Love it here, but we're going back to Australia eventually. So what did you do after London? And were you able to sort of nip over to Paris a few times while you were there?
Yes. Yeah. And there's a great story about my wedding and all that. But
no, tell me, what's that great story?
We did get engaged in London, and then he was asked to go with his firm to Hong Kong. So I said to my firm that my fiance was being transferred to Hong Kong, and they said, great, we can send you to Tokyo. So, as American banks do, Tokyo and Hong Kong are just hop, skip, and a jump.
Oh, you think that they didn't realize how far apart they were? Oh my God. Right. Okay.
Like literally, but that's a whole other story. But, so I did some M&A work in Tokyo. And then I was jumping on planes between Tokyo and Paris to get fitted for my dress because I hadn't planned anything for this wedding, and my mother was really angry with me. She said, "How can you be so selfish to focus on your career? You have a wedding to plan." And,
don't you love our mothers? Just a different era completely.
Completely. And that was interesting. So juggling a few things, like a major acquisition happening in Japan, trying to get a wedding organized, and then my fiance the whole time being in Hong Kong and trying to figure out how to keep that relationship going remotely. So it was a very interesting time. But ultimately I did get married, and I did get to Hong Kong after the honeymoon with Merrill Lynch.
But not with your husband. Was he still in Tokyo at that stage?
He was still in Hong Kong. So he was there already.
Sorry, it was me mixing you around. Okay, yep, gotcha.
And so we created this new married life for ourselves in Hong Kong, which was, interesting because we hadn't been together that long, but also, we had a great group of friends in London. And so we had really no one in Hong Kong. It was just the two of us, just newly married. So it was a really nice chapter for us.
Your little love bubble is how exactly. I would call it.
Got to know each other really well. And it was just the two of us in it together. And it was great. And we traveled all around Asia. But professionally speaking, I was approached by Goldman Sachs to help set up their hedge fund business. I think within a year after I got to Hong Kong. And while I was really loyal to Merrill Lynch, who had hired me out of uni, it was a great opportunity. So ultimately decided to make the move, which was a great decision professionally, working in Goldman Sachs and helping set up a new business and being very collaborative. That definitely played to my strengths.
Was there a different culture there? Maybe more women, sort of more accepting, that kind of thing?
Definitely more dynamic. And the background was Merrill Lynch had acquired a British company called Smith Newcourt, which was the basis for their platform in Hong Kong. So it was very British. And I'd come from this, very American global international investment bank into this very British kind of brokerage style. We've been in Hong Kong for X number of years. And I thought, and there were, very, very few women on the trading floor at Merrill Lynch, Hong Kong. So went across to Goldman, and it was literally the building next door. So that was weird. But so
did you ever walk in the wrong door in the early days? Kind of, oops, sorry, I'm not here anymore.
But it was a bit like my move to Australia, which is all of a sudden you realize there's very few degrees of separation. In America, nobody cares that, they don't really care where you went to school or where you're working and all that. They'll just kind of be friendly. But in Hong Kong, everybody's like, oh, you're next door. Okay, we should do this. So it was very interesting. So I learned, and along the journey, working in the US and then Europe and then Asia, you really adapt culturally to being very respectful and being a good listener and all those things. So
I think it actually really rounds you out as a person, actually, to travel and work in other cultures as well. So when did all leads lead to Australia?
Well, obviously my husband had said to me on our first date, he was going home to Melbourne. So here I am. So we spent 12 years in Asia in the end. I had two beautiful daughters, and we really wanted to get home. And
how was it having two children in a foreign country and then trying to bring them up when they were little? And you've got this massive career in finance, which again is not an industry I would have thought that would have gone, yeah, it's fine, take the day off that the children are sick or whatever might have happened.
No, it's definitely that cultural change, that cultural difference was quite different between Australia and Hong Kong. But the good news is it was quite easy in Hong Kong. Everybody's got help in Hong Kong. So I was very resistant to that whole setup, but that's what they do. So it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you have very limited maternity leave. I think I had less than 3 months. And it's just a given, you're going back to work, and I love working. So I was very happy to go back to work, but it's a bit heartbreaking. And then when you're back at work, everybody knows there's no daycare and you don't have to do pickups. And so, I would say,
so they can kind of take advantage of it a little bit.
Well, it's not even that, just it's a very hard working culture. So I would be looking to get on a bus home from one end of Hong Kong to the other at 6 o'clock. And if I missed that bus, I knew I wouldn't see my children before they went to sleep for the day. And 9 out of 10, I'd miss the 6 o'clock bus, and people would come up to me at 5:50 and say, "Are you going to leave early tonight?" And I'm thinking, it's 6 o'clock.
Early.
This is not early. And then if I miss the bus, I'd just end up working till 9 p.m. anyway. So look, you definitely learn a lot on the journey, as you said.
But they're daughters, as you said, and they probably, as you know, as the years go by, you're their role model. They're going to be looking at it going, I'm going to work really hard so I can be like my mum.
Well, yes and no, but I mean, there's a bit more to that as well. So I did end up moving to Melbourne in 2010. And largely for family reasons. It was a personal decision. I had a great career in Asia and I love my work, but my eldest daughter is hearing impaired, and we could definitely notice that she wasn't thriving as much as we would have liked. And we knew that Australia had leading edge education and support for
and the cochlear implant is from Australia as well. Correct. Isn't it? Another great Australian invention.
Yeah, correct. And that's exactly part of the story, which was she wasn't speaking in line with her peers, and by the time she was almost 4, I was beside myself and got on a plane to Melbourne, got a diagnosis. Within a week, she was prescribed with hearing aids, and she should have had them from the get-go. But in Hong Kong, you just don't get that kind of screening happening at birth. It's happening now, but when she was born 19 years ago, it wasn't happening. So, I knew that she needed more than what we could give her in Hong Kong, and as a family, we wanted to come home and have a more stable life than living in a small apartment in Hong Kong. So, look, you make compromises in your career. So I left my job in financial services, moved to Melbourne, became a mom, got settled in here, and then slowly but surely got my way back into the swing of things in this market. So originally, everybody was guiding me towards board roles, and I thought, well, this is interesting. Haven't done this before, so did the AICD course, and then got hired to. I went on to a couple of great boards, which I really enjoy. And obviously the feedback was, oh, you're a bit young to be a director. And
I'm just so delighted you're on boards. I'm working with all these women going, get on boards. We want more women on boards. So it's fantastic that you did.
It's a very mixed message out there, though, because on one hand, people say we need more women on boards, and on the other hand, they'll say you're a bit young, or
you're not the right kind of woman.
Exactly. So it becomes smaller and smaller slices of what is this. But yes, stuck with that, and did some great not-for-profit work, and love the board work that I'm doing, and then obviously wanted to really get back into full-time executive work. And so when my youngest daughter was in year 7. I did that, and I joined JB Weir as their head of product and markets, which was a great opportunity to come back into markets and do what I really love. And then worked at JB Weir for a few years, and I was approached by scale investors that, as I mentioned earlier,
so you were kind of headhunted by them.
I don't know if I was headhunted as a.
Well, you were approached, so I'd say that.
So NAB owns JB Weir, and there were many female senior executives in NAB who had become aware of scale investors. And there was a group of us who joined scale investors because we were equally motivated and passionate about this idea that by investing in early stage women-led business, we would get not only a great sense of purpose, but also the opportunity to deliver strong returns. And that's everything.
Make more money than any other kind of investment.
So I was able to kind of, match my passion with my skills, with my skill set and my experience to join this phenomenal group. And then my predecessor, Laura McKenzie, had left, and they were looking for a CEO. And a few people had said to me, "Oh, you should think about this." And I thought, I've never done the gender thing before. I really love working in markets. And then I think it was when the chair, Susan Oliver, had spoken to me about it, and a few friends in the network said, "You'd be really good at this." I thought, the universe is trying to tell me something. And so here I am.
So talk to me about not being interested in the beginning necessarily in going down the gender route. How has that panned out for you? Like, do you love now working with women, or is it just another interesting experience sort of along your path of your career? along
Great
that path
question.
of your career?
That is such a good question. I love what I do in that it's so obvious that this is a massive opportunity. And there are so few people who actually see the opportunity so clearly as Scale Investors does.
Yeah.
And also for the caliber of people that have joined Scale Investors. Our network is phenomenal. They are
How many investors? Because you are an angel network, aren't you?
correct.
In fact, let me just jump in first and say, can you explain to people the difference between an angel investor and a VC?
Yeah, no problem. So the main difference between an angel investor and a VC is that an angel investor is an individual investor who puts in their own personal capital into a specific investment early stage startup business, typically what we call the pre-seed or seed stage. A venture capital fund or a venture or VC fund manager is someone who manages money that other people have given them to manage within the venture capital asset class. So interestingly, in Australia at the moment, many of us venture capital funds and angel investors are looking at the same deals because the earlier you invest and the better terms you set for the founder, not necessarily for the investors, but for the founder to stay with their company, the better, the more likely that business is going to go on to be successful. So everybody wants to get in early, and they also want to build that relationship with the right type of advisors and the founder.
Which also needs to be balanced, I guess, for them with the risk, because if you're going to get in earlier, there is obviously a massive payoff if it goes well, but there is a huge risk that it might not go so well.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's
right. In general, would you say angel investors have a sort of a bigger appetite for risk?
Yes.
Is that the right thing to say?
Yeah, they are. And this is where it becomes super interesting for women, because if you're looking at away from the female founder piece, the female investor piece, a lot of women have outsourced that investing to a third party. And those third parties may or may not have experience in venture capital and early stage investing. So why not do it yourself? And that's exactly what Scale Investors helps with, which is we know that there are women out there who are sophisticated investors who are interested in not putting in a huge part of their portfolio, but putting in a modest amount of their portfolio into early stage companies. It's never been more relevant than in this economic climate. And with
like right now through COVID, are you talking about?
Yes, because interest rates are effectively at zero, and that means global growth is zero. But there is growth to be had and investments to be made and returns to be generated in this type of economic climate where people
absolutely. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I keep saying to people the opportunities that are coming out of this are huge, as well as it's devastating, and I'm not taking away from that for a lot of people. But if you are entrepreneurial, I keep seeing opportunities everywhere, and I know I'm not alone. There's loads of women like me doing the same thing.
That's exactly right. And that's what we're doing at Scale. So we're helping activate the capital, but we're doing it in a very sensible, very well-considered way. We only invest in companies which are investment ready. We meet the most amazing founders who are solving very important problems, which are worth solving. The question then becomes, what is their solution? How resilient are they? What are their skills and experiences? Are they the ones who are going to crack this problem? We've had some amazing companies come through the portfolio. We've invested in 26 companies. We've met with over 1,000 female founders. We've activated over 11 million of capital from the individual investors. So our model is we syndicate deals. So everybody comes in and we all look at the deals together, but ultimately as a group, we'll elect which deals we go in on together. And each individual angel investor will put in their own amount of money, and Scale Investors will help to facilitate that as a syndicated investment, so that the company gets one investment on their cap table and it doesn't create a messy cap table to the companies.
If the company or the group, the syndicate, decides that they don't want to go with an investment, do any of the individual angels sometimes go, well, actually, I really love it, so I'm going to go and invest in it anyway?
Yeah, we do see that sometimes happening. And we also see a lot of the founders we're speaking to end up deciding to go with a crowdfunding campaign. And many of our investors who may have been impressed by those founders and those business ideas may participate in those crowdfunding campaigns. Equally, interestingly, now what we're seeing is there are other people saying, oh, there's something in this women thematic. There's something in this diversity, and ever since Black Lives Matter has really become part of the national conversation, the global conversation, people are actually realizing that diversity does drive out performance, and there's some significant areas of our economy which have been underinvested. So now people are coming to us and saying, what are what deals are you looking at? Can we get on board? And
that's fantastic news. I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time. So, whereas 3 years ago when I took this role at scale, I had people in the market saying, why would you do that? And, do women think they're special? No, we don't.
That is just the constant, isn't it? Why are you taking women out? Why don't you just put it all together?
Everyone's equal,
I mean, traditionally, that's what we've done. And look what's happened. Nothing.
Correct. And so, and I'm not getting any younger. It's sort of, I'm exhausted with this concept that, yes, we're all equal, and we absolutely are. And obviously, as a function of my journey, there's never been, if there's anyone to say that there's humility and empathy and understanding where people are coming from, it's me and our group at Scale Investors. So no, it's not about being special, but it's recognizing where there is a serious underinvestment and where there are some amazing people who have a lot to add. And there's other groups in Australia which are focusing on migrants, refugees.
Yes, and disabled people and all sorts. Yeah.
The Aboriginal thematic around regional startups that are catering to solving problems in their communities. There are so many things happening where you could argue that the institutional end of the market just doesn't have the capacity to, or the insights to actually understand what is driving these businesses. We do, and that's where we play really well.
Oh my God, I absolutely love what you're doing. Now, can you talk to me a little bit about what sort of founders, what sort of businesses are Scale looking to invest in? Are there particular types?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the first filter is there a female founder? Is she a real female founder? It can be co-founded.
Have you ever had anyone, by the way, come along and say we've got female founders and they don't really, or
yes.
They've just dragged someone in to make it look good?
Yes, we had a company apply and pitch to us. She did an amazing job. Everybody absolutely loved her. And then we asked her what percentage of the business she owned, and she said she was in the process of earning her 5%.
Oh my goodness. And they put her in as a founder.
They put her in as a founder. And the worst thing about that whole story was that the male co-founder who owned the 90+% of the company didn't see an issue with it. She had been sold this story that as a salaried employee, she had this privilege of earning her equity. But to come to pitch to our network with this ruse of having a female founder, we just found a little bit rich.
It's absolutely outrageous. And on top of that, can't he go to the other 98% of companies that are supporting blokes? Like, really?
Yeah, that's right. That's about right. So we've seen all sorts. But back to your question, the types of companies that we're looking for, truly female founded. I.e. having a majority of the share of the business. And we've met some amazing co-founded teams where it's a male-female co-founder. They have an even split of the company, of the business. That's fine. As long as it's reflected that she has a majority share. Right. And then from there, it's is that business a truly commercial business on its own? Does it stand on its own 2 feet? Is it really a viable investment? And in that, can our network help with those companies? So, as an example, the majority of our investors come from amazing backgrounds, as I mentioned, in STEM, in professional services, entrepreneurs themselves who've exited businesses. These are a very savvy group of people. But the particular focus that Scale has is probably a majority of people who've come from big roles in big companies or having grown a business themselves and having sold a business themselves. So they've got real life experience and they've got that background. So where we see companies in industries where our investors have worked, that's a great match. So we do a lot of STEM, we do insurance tech, prop tech, we do ag tech, we do ed tech. So we've a lot of parents. We've invested in some great businesses who help where mothers and parents are seeing that there's a clear need to help societal issues at an early stage, teaching kids how to talk, other things. A lot of that is just reading the tea leaves around the companies that are presenting to us and which investors we have who could be really valuable for these companies. So it's not just about activating the capital, it's also about activating the in-kind support to make sure that that company will go on to thrive and grow really well.
Well, Ariane, I am so glad that you were able to come and speak to me today. I've actually been having this show for over a year now, and I must have brought up Scale Investors at least 15 times over the last 12 months. So it's great to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Now, if anyone wanted to get hold of you or to look at Scale Investors, what's the best way of them doing that?
Thank you. The best way of reaching out to us is through our website, scaleinvestors.com.au. We host monthly office hours, which you can register for through our website. And that is all about coming along, having a conversation, asking any question you want about who we are, what we do, how we do it, what's involved with accessing capital through an angel investor network, and where we can facilitate further connection. We're happy to do that. We also host pitching events every other month. So we openly accept applications, but we really like to get to know people before. If you're interested in becoming an investor with Scale Investors, equally jump onto the website under the investor section. It'll tell you all about what's included. It's a great opportunity to invest alongside some other equally smart people and feel like you're doing it with a very well-rehearsed group who knows what they're doing. So welcome to anyone who wants to get involved.
Oh, well, thank you so much, as I said, for joining me today. That's fantastic. And I hope that you get a whole lot more people. I think I might have to come along to an office hours myself and find out a little bit more about it, because it sounds fantastic.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your questions. It's wonderful.
No, that's my pleasure. If you've enjoyed the show today, please would you comment, like and subscribe. We are trying to build up our network. We also, if you enjoyed this interview, I have got a podcast called She's the Boss Chats, where I'm releasing 2 interviews every week with 2 amazing female founders. So if you really want to get inspired and be motivated, I would encourage you to go and listen to the podcast. We also run regular weekly Zoom lunches for female founders, and we have a membership program. So go to she'stheboss.com.au and you can find out all about it. And I hope to see you for the next episode.